All right, class. Welcome to our to lecture 4, and before it's called the Enlightenment. Before we get started, I want to go over with you a very important thing, and that is I am lecturing, what you want to be writing down, what you want to be taking notes are not just the things that I've written down. Those things are obviously important, but you also want to write down things that I am just talking about. Um, and actually listening to what I'm saying than just writing down on the screen. If you're just writing the words down on the screen, you're going to be missing some very important information. All right, here we go. So the Enlightenment. Uh, Before we actually get in again, I want to talk about what this whole first semester is. And this whole first semester in world history is where we are learning, where do we get our rights from? Where do we as the United States of America get our form of government? First unit we talked about the Greeks and the Romans, and all the information that the Greeks and the Romans they built, the republic, the direct democracy, the branches of government, the code of law, that all went away. There was no more reason and logic and philosophers and all their type of society. For a long time, there was only religion, and kings ruled the world. There was no form of democracy. Kings had all the power. And then you start slowly chipping away at taking power from the king and giving it to the people. And the Enlightenment is actually an intellectual movement in the 17th and 18th century Europe that used reason and logic to try and reform society. Now that it was done by a group of philosophers, and we're going to talk about 3 or 4 in our lecture today. You're going to read some more in class as well. But these philosophers basically sat around in rooms. They had to do it in private because the governments did not want them doing this. And they talked about how can we better change society? What rights do we have of people do we have? And the Enlightenment was a very, very, very big influential movement in creating our government. And in fact, the very first words of the United States Constitution are "we the people." It's not ruled by one person like it was for so many years by one king or one queen. Rather, it's we the people of the United States. We are going to be the rulers. We are going to dictate how things are going. Did not mean to do that. Remember what a constitution is. A constitution is a set of laws that determine how our society are going to work. And who is going to determine that again? It is we the people. A question that many philosophers were talking about during the Enlightenment is this question right here, is by what right does one man govern another? Does God decide who rules? Or do we the people? The ideas developed during the Enlightenment lead us from a divine right to our rights. So first I want to go over what does divine right mean. Divine right simply means that a king or queen rules because God has chosen them to. Not that we elect somebody, rather the God essentially picks a ruler. God says that King John or Queen Mary or whoever it is has the right to rule. And our philosophers didn't feel that's right. They felt that we have rights and we should be able to determine who rules or not. So the Enlightenment actually starts way, way back, what we learned about in the first unit. It starts with the philosophers. And if you remember correctly, our philosophers came from Greece. They were Socrates, they were Plato, they were Aristotle. And again, if you remember correctly, they write about ideas on the rights people should have, how government should work, and that sort of thing. Remember, Aristotle talked about the middle class ruling, Plato, the philosopher king, Socrates, about questioning things. So the Enlightenment actually starts way, way back 1,000, 15, 2,000 years earlier during the philosophers in ancient Greece. All right. They build on English documents. They take what the English started, and which was taking power from the king. And if you remember what document that was, I hope you do. And what should be going in your mind, going through your mind right now, is the Magna Carta in 1215, that contract that took away the English king's right and gave it more to the nobles. So the Enlightenment builds on what happened in England, and it even goes further. Why do we need a king? How about no king? And how about power to the people, that we the people have the power to lead? And those are just those are what the Enlightenment is going to build upon. And the first philosopher, his name is Thomas Hobbes. And Thomas Hobbes wrote a book called let's see, oops, let me get this in there for you. He wrote don't need that. He wrote a book. Let me get this for us. Todd, you're going to need to know this. The Leviathan. And in this book, he came up with the premise that people are naturally bad. People, if left to their own devices, are negative, bad people. And because of this, he believed that the government must keep order. That it was because people are bad, the only way to protect people from themselves are to have a strong government. It restricts citizens so they will behave. So we trade our freedom to do what we want to get stability and a peaceful society. And we get rules, but the result is order. He believed that the best form of government was a monarchy. And he wanted a strong central leader, one leader who set all the rules, and again, to protect people because they are negative human beings. So, just a reminder, Thomas Hobbes, or a review, Thomas Hobbes believed that people are naturally bad. They called it the state of nature. How do you believe people are? The state of nature. Hobbes thought people were naturally, or the state of nature was a negative one or a bad one. Conversely, you have somebody else, and his name is John Locke. And I'm hoping you remember from our Documents of Democracy lecture, John Locke was a huge contributor to many of our founding fathers, especially Thomas Jefferson. He read all the time John Locke and believed in a lot of what John Locke had to say. So, John Locke, what did he have to say? He was a philosopher, and he believed, unlike Hobbes, that the state of nature, that people were naturally good, that we as human beings are good and can govern ourselves. He believed that people are born free. We have rights given to us by nature. You see this in the Declaration of Independence, where it says everybody, we have the right to life, liberty, and property, and that idea comes from John Locke. Government is only there to protect our rights so we can exercise or use them. This is completely different than Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes said that the government there is to protect us from ourselves. John Locke is saying the complete opposite, that the only reason government is there is to protect our rights. So we can use them. An example is what we'll get into later. So we're going to stop there.